Now, I would like to recognize myself for 5 minutes for questioning. And well, I have a bunch of questions, and I'm sure everybody else does too. So if you could just get right to the point, answer these things, because we want to cover as much of this important ground as we possibly can. NASA has a storied history with overrunning costs and schedules for space systems development. Some of these programs have even suffered cancellation as a result, and this has simply got to stop. We need performance, not excuses, from the agency as well as providers. And with that in mind, of NASA's options, what acquisition mechanisms, such as cost plus, fixed price, or Space Act agreements, are most useful in promoting performance and holding the provider as well as the agency management accountable for meeting the acquisition requirements? And I'd ask you first, Mr. Dumbacher.
Congressman, I think the appropriate acquisition tool depends on the objectives of the program and the scientific engineering issues and risks associated with that. We have a lot of experience with cost-plus contracts in this country. NASA uses that a lot for its major programs. There is the discussion of public-private partnerships, which can also be valuable and has been tried in the past, some successful, some not. When we consider all of this, we need to consider the objectives that are for the program, what are the incentives and the motives that are necessary for success, both in terms of how it would apply in a public-private partnership as well as a cost-plus arena, and we need to sort through those and make valid, conscious, objective decisions.
Thank you. And now the next, that same question, Ms. Chaplain, if you would answer that. I don't need to repeat it, right?
Right.
Okay.
So with fixed price contracts, the contractor bears the most risk for meeting cost and schedule goals. So that's your main aim. That's a contract, but it's not really appropriate when you're facing a lot of unknowns at the beginning. If you're really stretching technology, you don't know how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. In that case, the government does need to bear the risk of the contract, and that's where cost plus comes in.
Okay, thank you. And then we're talking about cost plus, so I was going to, the second part of my question to you two, do cost plus contracts provide any incentive for the provider to complete the project on time and on schedule?
There are typically incentives built into the contract, and they come through the award fees. So some may be tied to performance and quality and things like that, but others could definitely be tied to cost and schedule.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Mr. Dumbacher.
Just to add a little bit to that, when we have done award fee, cost plus award fee, and incentive fee in the past, we do and can make schedule performance and cost performance part of the evaluation criteria, and that is typically included.
Okay, thank you. And then to Mr. Martin and Ms. Chaplain as well. Acquisition encompasses a great deal, including strategic planning, procurement processes, and the development of clear requirements. For many years, the DoD has employed a robust training and certification program for defense acquisition professionals. What institutional improvements, such as training, certification, and career progression, are necessary or perhaps missing from NASA's acquisition processes?
I know NASA has invested pretty heavily in training cost estimators and project management. They have conferences every year, for example, but I still think maybe more could be done in that area, in certain techniques, and especially more program management issues related to managing contracts.
Okay, and then Mr. Martin?
Attracting and retaining the project managers is a real challenge for the agency. As Mr. Dumbacher suggested, within NASA, 50% of the workforce is over 50 years old. And with a diminishing number of small projects for these project managers to really get the experience and cut their teeth on, it's a real concern.
Okay, and then do you think NASA can gain from DoD's experiences?
I'm not as familiar with DoD's experiences.
Okay, Ms. Chaplain?
I think that Defense Acquisition University is a very good model for training programs in all kinds of issues. It's something NASA could look toward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jurczyk, NASA recently took steps to control the cost of the Europa Clipper and W-FIRST missions while in formulation. Have these steps proven helpful, and can similar measures be implemented on other major projects to control the cost?
Yes, on W-FIRST, we did had an independent review board come in and look at the project early in Phase A in formulation, and they confirmed that the project scope had grown and they were not going to be able to execute the mission within the $3.2 billion budget that we had for them for the management agreement. They made some recommendations. The project took those recommendations and adjusted the scope and replanned the cost and schedule estimates, and they came in and presented their baseline to the Agency Program Management Council, which I chair, and we have confidence based on their estimate, given the replan, that they have a solid estimate going into Phase B. I think that and similarly for your Europa Clipper, so I think that is a way to try to minimize cost and schedule risk early in the program.
Okay, I'm out of time. I had several more questions, but thank you very much. I'd like to recognize the gentleman from